Did you always know you were adopted?
I can't remember a time not knowing.
How did you know?
Because Mom and Dad always told me.
How did they tell you?
Well, they said that the Lord had picked out a special gift for them, and it was me, and they also read that book, The Chosen Baby.
Do you still have that book?
Yep.
What did the book say?
It said the whole story of how Mr. and Mrs. Jones couldn't have a baby, and so they called up the social worker, and they waited and waited and hoped, and then one day the phone rang and Mrs. Jones said hello, and it was the social worker, and she said, "We've got a wonderful little boy for you." And then it was about them getting the baby's room ready, and then they got a little girl after that, and it was pretty much the same story as we had.
Now, did you, so what did you make of that I'm adopted? So when you realize other people, like you went to school with or went to Sunday school with, they weren't adopted, what did you make of that you were adopted and they weren't?
Well, some people said that your parents were stuck with you. And I said, well, my parents weren't stuck with me because they chose me, and your parents were actually stuck with you. And so that shut them up really quick. But for me, no, I always, as a child, felt special that I believed the story, and I believed that I was specially chosen and all of that, because you don't know all you hear when you're a child is what your parents are telling you. So you learn different things later, and you might feel a different way later. But then I felt special.
And later, as in, like when you get to be a teenager in your 20s, did you process it differently? Did you tell yourself a different story?
Well, I know that I had times when sadness creeped in on me. And it would be like at a family reunion, and everybody would be saying, "That's your grandfather that did this, that's your this." And I was like, well, no, it's not, because I'm not related by blood to any of these people. And I would look around at everybody, and even though they were so welcoming, they had the same mannerisms, and I didn't, and I felt like I was on the outside looking in, because they were not my people, really, by blood. So, and when you heard, another thing that bothered me was when you would go to spend the night parties and people's mothers would tell the birth stories of having my friends, how it was when they gave birth to them. And I never had a birth story, so I felt like that I was left out about that. I could never say, well, my mom said this, or my mom said this, because I didn't have that. So there were little instances where I would feel empty, or sadness would creep in, even though I was the chosen baby.
Now, when you say sadness, what do you mean by that?
Well, that's even hard to describe, because it was more like an emptiness of not knowing and having like these shadow forms. It was sort of like when I imagined how my birth mother would be, it was like I could never picture a face. It was just more like an outline in the back of my head, and it was like a presence, but it was like more like of a shadow. There was no face to it, and I was like, man, I'd really like to know actually who my mother and father were that that created me. So.
Did you ever talk to Mom and Dad about that?
Yeah, I would ask little questions, and I didn't get a very good response. And it was like every couple years I would ask another question and test the waters, and it was always the waters weren't good, so I just would stop. I mean, it was obvious that they didn't want to tell me, and they would say, "We don't know because we were so excited to get you, and it didn't matter to us, so we didn't ask." When I would ask information about my mother.
So that's what they would say. All the nonverbal stuff, what did you take away from that? What were they really trying to say?
That they didn't want to talk about it.
Because?
And they didn't want me to know it.
Because?
They were insecure, or they thought I was going to run away. I don't know. Which I never would have. It wasn't about them, it was about me, I felt. I mean, it was nothing to do, my questions were nothing to do about them. They were to do, or anything that they did wrong. It was something to do with me and something that I didn't have, that knowledge that I didn't have inside of me.
I think it's difficult to explain to people who are not adopted why you want to know that. Because it feels like that you're being disloyal if you ask the question. But if you tried to explain, like if your friends say, well, why is it so important? You've got a mom and dad. Why is it so important to know who your biological mother or father were? How do you try to explain that to them? Why is it so important to know?
Because you take for granted when you do know whose blood you have and whose DNA you have. If you know that from birth, and then you could trace your whole line back, and you could know why you have characteristics like you do, and you could know maybe why you behave some of the ways you do, because I certainly didn't behave like our parents, and it's just something that if you have it, you take it for granted. If you don't have it, you need to know it. It's like it's like a whole part of yourself that you have no idea about. It's like just empty, like a blankness.